Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
I'm Brittany Pacheco.
And I am Tristan, of Dragon Rider's Bastard.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today to discuss Season 2, Episode 6. The episode's titled Smallfolk of House of the Dragon. And, we want to be your post-game home for House of the Dragon coverage. We're coming to you right after the end of Episode 6. A lot of stuff happened in this one, so let's get right to it. Tristan, what are your thoughts on this episode?
I like the episode. Very dialogue heavy. Not a ton of warfare, I guess, but I think it is a lot of warfare, just in a more subtle sense. I think some people will complain about this episode being slow. I understand it. I think a lot happened that just unfortunately you're gonna have to wait, next episode, throughout the rest of these last 4 episodes to really pay off. But I thought it was overall a good episode. Probably one that in the course of a 10 episode season will get overlooked, but I thought some important things happened. Some really, really important things happened in this episode. So overall, I liked it. Good 7.5 out of 10.
Solid. Yeah. Brittany, what about you? What do you think? Initial thoughts on the episode?
Yeah, I enjoyed the episode as well. I know for the most part, a lot of the people that we've talked to all kind of feel the same. Like, these are really slow episodes. There's not a lot of action. And, when comparing it to Game of Thrones was action, action, action. But you still need to build and tell the story. And that's why these sorts of episodes are very important, just because in the book, I'm always going to talk about the book, y'all. This season, I'm y'all's book reader, I'm not going to say expert because I'm just not, but I will compare the show to the book. And with the book, there is a lot of fast-paced story. You don't get the details. You don't get down to the nitty-gritty of why Team Black operates the way that they do versus how Team Green does. And I enjoy these episodes because you're seeing the repercussions of the choices that are being made on one side, and then you're also seeing just how the other side needs to really build their army or their strength in order to take on the other side, right? So with that being said, I did enjoy this episode. There was a moment in the episode where I screamed, I literally just screamed, because for one, it's not part of the story, at least not that I can remember. But two, it was just oh, okay, I get it. I get why we're doing this and what have you, which is fine. I have no problem with it whatsoever, because when you're longing, y'all. Okay. That's just all there is to it. But this episode, I think, is great. Very, very good ending. I think we can all agree that Game of Thrones stories usually end with a really great cliffhanger. So that being said, I also want to give a shout out to everyone who's in our live chat today. Thank you for being here so much. Shout out to Mel of Geeking Out with Melly Mel, Christian of McDorks, who says, have a great night. Hi and bye. I know Christian has not watched House of the Dragon. I do highly encourage you to do so. M Moves is also here with us. And also Yesenia is saying she loves this episode and can't believe that there's only 2 episodes left. Yes, I absolutely agree. And as Mel has done in the chat, y'all, drop us an emoji. Who are you for? Team Black or Team Green or Team Undecided? Let us know.
Yeah. Brittany, you brought up Rhaenyra. Let's start with Rhaenyra because she had a busy episode. And, like a lot of people this week, she got a copy of College Football 25. And she's been doing a lot of recruiting. Now, Rhaenyra, she wasn't looking for a dual threat quarterback or a 5-star wide receiver. She was looking for a dragon rider, right? So throughout the episode, trying to recruit, trying to find somebody. And it turns out the dragon chose the rider, which I did not see that coming. Let's start out with the dragon talk, then we'll move on to the other interesting developments with Rhaenyra. Tristan, what are your thoughts on how that played out as far as sending Sir Stefan Darkling to an early grave, and in the end they found a dragon rider?
My wife spent a good 5 minutes. Is he gonna die? Is he gonna get eaten? And I just had to kind of just sit there, Well, I don't know if he's gonna get eaten or burned, but I knew he was gonna die. I didn't know if what liberties the show was gonna take as opposed to the book, but yes, that was Sir Declan. I'm sorry, Sir Darkland. Sir Darkland. He was doomed from the beginning. Anytime you see somebody like just so eager to serve in a complete suicide mission, you have to know what's happening next. Like I kept asking, like, what is the likelihood of him surviving this? Like off some distant, relative Targaryen, blood from his great grandmother, something like that. So it's indicative of something that I don't know if the show, I guess because there's only 2 episodes left, that they're not gonna like fully flesh out, which is that Team Black tried everything to get dragon riders. Like they invited a bunch of people, they offered rewards, they offered like lands, titles, all these things, for dragon riders. So many tried, so many failed. I think Sir Darkland is kind of like the avatar for like the multitudes of failures to find dragon riders. Some did succeed. I don't know how many we'll see throughout this season, but some did succeed. But yeah, Sir Darkland, like he was doomed. I'm glad he thought it was an honor. I'm glad he had a plan in case it did not work out, for a quick death. But yeah, it feels like he was eager to die because that was a suicide mission if I ever seen one.
I mean, I'll give it to the guy. He did say that he did pledge his loyalty to Rhaenyra, and if that meant his death in order to protect her and uphold his vows, like he was prepared to do that. And you got to give credit to someone who's willing to do that. But as Yesenia said here in the chat, he was scared. He was scared, as Justin likes to say. I mean, hell, I would be too. As old as these dragons are, I would be terrified as well. And when you think Seasmoke was actually going to obey and serve, right? Because he lowered his head and he's kind of watching Sir Stefan approach, and then it's like, nope, psych, just kidding, I'm gonna burn you. So yeah, that was a big bargain to play with right there. And as Move says here, he was a real one. Yeah. So R.I.P. Sir Stefan Darkland. You will be remembered fondly. And yeah.
We're gonna forget about you, Sir Darkland.
Like, well, I was trying to be sentimental, but I guess okay. Moving on.
He got cooked, literally.
A little bit.
I understand they're looking for a highborn or someone with Targaryen blood, but I want to pose this question to y'all. The Dragon Keepers, they're with the dragons a lot. They're the Dragon Keepers. Why not try one of the Dragon Keepers? What? Brittany, you're shaking your head. Why would that not work?
It goes further back than just what we're seeing. Just because there are people who can, quote, tame a dragon doesn't mean that they have the same ability to bond with a dragon. And it goes back even further to the histories of old Valyria before the Targaryens really even existed, or maybe the early ancestors of the Targaryens, where it was blood magic that was used in order to create this bond with dragons that were not the fire-breathing dragons that we come to know and love. They were different creatures, and like by mixing of bloodlines and things like that, now we have dragons, but then you have their blood that's literally in Targaryen blood, and that's why that bond has to be strong in order to have a Targaryen or a Targaryen descendant, if you will, like Valerian, Baratheon, for example, because Princess Rhaenys was a Baratheon. She's not fully Targaryen. Emma, Viserys' wife, she was Aeron. So the stronger bloodlines, if you're half Targaryen or Valerian or something like that, you have a better chance of bonding with a dragon than just, let's say, any average person, or in this case, potentially a bastard child. So yeah, there's that little bit of history for you.
Yeah, that leads us right to the fact that Seasmoke, who, okay, remind me or inform me to begin with. Who is the last writer of Sea Smoke? Do we know that, Tristan?
Laner.
Laner,
Oh, it's
Valerian.
Laner. Okay.
So, and this is something that Frank has brought up with our past pods is that
there he is. Frank's joining us.
Oh, Frank is going to be joining us. We're going to welcome Frank right into the show. Look at you. Good timing.
The devil. Wow, there he is.
Y'all celebrate your own rise with your whores and your lick spittles.
Oh, Frank, this is actually really great timing because we were just talking about how Sea Smoke was Laner's dragon. And in the show adaptation, Laner is, to our knowledge, still alive. He's just abroad. But the fact that you've talked about how Sea Smoke is, I guess, technically still bonded to Laner, but now we get this kind of ending where maybe he's chosen Adam of Hull.
This is a result when your broadband internet's out of range. So Laner is broadband AT&T. Sea Smoke is the modem, and he's just too far out of range. I think that's what I think the show is going a whole different route with this. I guess the new rule is if the owner don't claim his dragon over a certain amount of time, it's up for grabs. I don't know why they just didn't kill Laner last season like they did in the books, or heavily in the books. But
let someone in this world have a happy ending, like just someone. Let it be the gay man. Let him be.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they're comfortable going against like the dragon rules that in this world. I mean, I guess, but in a way, it could strengthen. That's not Alan. What's his name again? Alvin. What's his name?
Adam
of Hull.
Adam of Hull.
Alvin.
Okay. I knew all these iterations of A's and R's, and I get confused. But I guess it strengthens. I guess in a way, it kind of strengthens Adam's position in this world. Like, you know, Sea Smoke's owner is dead, but like he is the chosen one for this dragon. So I mean, cool, whatever. I mean, that's fine.
Sure, Lord. Yes, Mel. I'm going back to the chat. Mel is asking, Laner died in the books. Yes, it is believed that he did die in the books at the hands of his good friend, possible lover. You know, but keep in mind in the books, there's two perspectives being told, so you just kind of have to decide for yourself which is the real story and what isn't. But in the show, they did change it up to where he lived. He just faked his own death and got to run away with his lover.
Do we get a mushroom in this series? Does he pop up somewhere in King's Landing or wherever? Like, do we get?
So the way that George R. R. Martin explains it is that like there's essentially two universes, right? There's the book universe and there's the show universe. The show, like they said for season 1, like the show is meant to be like the definitive story, whereas again the book is really like two forms of gossip come together. So this is. We're really supposed to go off this, honestly.
Yeah. So in the chat, Emu says he needed to have his life with his gay true love. Yes, I agree. Laner really did. And yes, his lover was jealous and killed him, as according to the books. Not quite sure how Laner could pop up again, because that would really disrupt a lot with the future of the story. So I think we won't see him again. Just my 2 cents.
What if his dragon finds him, though? Like this dragon found Adam.
His dragon's going to have to go across the narrow sea in order to go find Laner. And that's probably not going to happen.
Dragons are gods, though. They can do anything.
That's true. That is true.
Any other thoughts on Adam of Hull getting a nice ride?
Listen, he was scared too. I mean, I don't blame the guy. I really don't, honestly. But now that Frank's here, I want to get his quick overall thoughts on today's episode. I know you've had some feelings about this season thus far.
Yeah, I mean, the pacing frustrates me at times, but I mean, it's starting to move a little bit more now. I mean, you're starting to see things crystallize. I like what Eamon's doing. My toxic traits lies within him. It just spices up the show. Like some of the bad decision making just makes it fun to watch and play out, and like how's it gonna blow up in his face. Have y'all talked about the scene with Aemon and Aegon?
Not yet. No.
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah, he's becoming a fan favorite just out of just sheer entertainment purposes. Like he's a one dude. Like if I'm watching a movie and that character is in that movie, I'm gonna be dialed in because I love to see bad decisions being made and like things fall into place and like the ramifications of those bad decisions. And it's just the constant, like, it doesn't matter. One thing that every bad king in every bad region, whether it's Cersei, whether it's Aemon now, Maegor, the constant disrespect and like not paying attention to the small folk and how critical that they are in the political terrain of what you're trying to do of running this kingdom. And you got to play the game, man. When it comes to politics, it's not just, oh, this armored chair, this is what I want. It comes with politics. It comes with not controlling people, but massaging people and like dealing with everything that comes along with it. And it's almost amazing how Aemon can be one of those people who he knows his history, he studies it, he speaks fluent Valyrian, like he's prepped himself to be, king one day or aspirations of being king. But like the small little details when it comes to like running a kingdom is like it's fleeting him. And I look forward to his destruction. I think it's gonna be beautiful played out on screen.
I think a lot of people get this show confused. Like they think this show is about like the Dance of the Dragons, and it's not. That is like a side. It's like a opening round, boxing match for like the larger thing, which is like this is about the fall of the Targaryens. And what Frank is talking about is like, again, not paying attention to details, not understanding history, not checking your surroundings, like letting privilege like be this bubble. Like Aemon, what you're describing, Aemon is in a bubble. Like he's been living his privileged life to where he's never had to like fully confront the small folk and their needs and all these things. Like these things aren't really taught. Like maybe Viserys didn't teach him shit. So like these are the lessons. Like where was he going to learn that lesson? So like all of these things are what precipitate the fall of the Targaryen dynasty. The Dance of the Dragons was just like an accelerant. But like this show is not about just dragons fighting. This is about how a claim for a throne made all these other things possible, made the Dance of the Dragons possible. The Dance of Dragons, again, accelerated like this fall from grace of really this fall from status. And like, this is why like the small folk, the way that they've kind of paid off this plot line of the small folk being, in having like this, what's the word I'm looking for? Hating the royal kingdom, right? Because like they're starving, they need food, their needs aren't being met. We saw that when they came into the throne room, how like they just couldn't do anything because of the blockade, because all these different things that they told Aemon, like, yo, this is our responsibility. And he's not understanding that because, youthful arrogance, so on and so forth. But like, these are the things to where when we get to season 1 of Game of Thrones and we see Dany and Viserys, essentially beggars, having to stay at people's houses. Like there's so many things that happen in between that. And like, yeah, you could honestly say that it started all the way with Aegon the Conqueror. Like the seeds of like the fall of the Targaryen dynasty were there from the beginning. But like this show is about like how like this completely accelerated their fall from, dynastic status to where they are when we get to Game of Thrones.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And I think to go back to Aemon, there's one book detail that was slightly changed that it makes sense for the show. So in the book, Alicent is the one that ordered the blockade, not the blockade, but like the walls and the doors to be shut so Smallfolk couldn't leave. I love that the show made it for Aemon to make the decision. It just adds on to the piles of like his personality of just undercutting and just not respecting people who are below him and people who who he deems just insufficient and like nothing. So I love that the show made that slight detail, making Aemon the head sayer of like that decision.
Yeah, and the title of this episode is Smallfolk, and we, these are hungry people. They're looking for food, and it's actually Mysaria who becomes Rhaenyra's main council member, and maybe something else in her life we'll talk about in a second. But it's her idea. It's her strategic move to send food to King's Landing. Brittany, walk me through that strategy, and it seems like it worked out pretty well in this episode.
It's smart to keep someone like Mysaria in Rhaenyra's council, if you will. I mean, she's not like officially part of the small council, but to have her as a confidant, if you will, is starting to pay off, because Mysaria is one of the small people, right? She knows what it's like to be hungry. She knows what it's like to be in King's Landing and have nothing. But she, worked herself hard, if you will. I mean, albeit terrible conditions to elevate oneself, but she did. But she understands the small folk, and by sending a messenger into King's Landing at the end of last episode to start planting these seeds and really watch them blossom into causing the small folk to think and see, wow, we're suffering, but the royals in the Red Keep are still able to have their feast. They get to have all this meat and the spices and everything that they are longing for, because the blockade, I mean, not just the blockade, right? Which, yes, Rhaenyra and Corlys have successfully just totally cut off, but for Aemon to make that decision to close off the city where no one can enter and no one can leave is what's really hurting the small folk. So they're desperate, they're angry, they're hungry. And when you're all of those things, you start acting out a little bit more so. And when you start hearing this sort of narrative of, well, we suffer, but the royals get to keep on royaling, if you will, it starts creating waves. You see that one wife of Hugh, or Hugh's wife, sorry, who is in line. She's trying to get something for her family, and the vendor just like totally runs out. And it's desperation. And then finally, when you see these ships arrive through the mind of Mysaria to send not just one ship, but multiple ships bearing the sigil of House Targaryen, Rhaenyra's sigil, that even abroad or across the Blackwater Bay, she's still thinking of her people. She's still going to do for her people something that the Greens are not doing. And so that also creates chaos, because now the small folk are fighting one another to try and get whatever scraps of food that they can. But you're hearing the message throughout King's Landing, long live Queen Rhaenyra, long live Queen Rhaenyra. So the plan is working. It's going to cause problems, but it's working. I mean, it's kind of brilliant, actually. I admire that. I admire the chaos that's about to ensue.
The Greens missed the offensive coordinator, man. They missed Otto. Like this is such a laughable oversight. Like if Otto was there, this shit would not be going on. Like I feel like Otto would have been at least a couple steps ahead of Rhaenyra and Mysaria when it comes to like knowing the political terrain of like taking care of the people and like making sure you have the people's favor of like who they want on the throne. I'm not saying he's not absolved for his poor decision making too. Like, I mean, parading a dead prince throughout the streets was not smart. But I mean, I feel like he would have made better decisions and probably would have like coached Aemon through the better decision he's made so far. Now, would Aemon would have listened? Who knows? But at least having that voice of reason, who's not scared to speak their mind. Because like watching these small council scenes in King's Landing, they look terrified. They look like they don't want to talk. Like they look like they're afraid that if they say the wrong thing, they might get exiled, like Allison has. So it's just one of those things where you don't have tutelage there, and it's starting to show.
I hate it when you're right, Frank. God damn it! Like when Frank's right. For me to admit that Frank's right about Otto Hightower, as much as I love and hate that man at the same time, damn it. You're right.
Yeah,
Otto Hightower would have been the voice of reason.
But Aemon wants him back. He wants to bring back Otto.
True, but this is also after the fact that Aemon's made poor decisions. So, and now that his brother is awake and coherent and conscious to some degree, however small it may be, it's a threat. It's definitely a threat.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And let's take a question here from Mel. You want to read it, Brittany?
Yeah, sure. So Mel asked, not sure if you guys plan to talk about this, but Allison has other kids. Whose kids was she talking about with Gawain? So yes, Allison does have another child that we have yet to meet. This is also following the book. Allison has 4 children. She's got Aegon, who's king, Helena, who's his sister wife, Aemon, who we all know, and then Darren. Darren is the youngest, who was sent away at a very young age to be a ward in Old Town, which is where the Hightowers reside. So he's been being raised by, I guess, her family over yonder, and he has yet to make his appearance in this season, which I don't believe we will get to see him, because I do not believe Darren has been cast. But Darren will also have a part to play in this whole Dance of Dragons.
Yeah, there's a little bit of talk about Darren, like you said, with Gawain. He was talking about how, Darren is, he's good with the sword, but he's also kind, and he's got a lot of young ladies are after him or everything. So it sounds like, Allison, sent him away early on, which I don't really remember that in the show. I don't know if we got to see that.
They never addressed it in the show.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Why was he sent away? Mel asked, is he a Targaryen too? Yes, he certainly is a Targaryen. He is Viserys's youngest son, but I can't remember precisely the reasons that he was sent away, other than maybe Alicent didn't want to subject him to the volatile life that is the court. And maybe the reason he's so kind and whatnot is because he grew up away from court and he isn't anything like his 2 other brothers.
Yeah. So Tristan, it's a tough episode for Allison. Whereas for Rhaenyra, things are kind of looking up in a way in this kind of crazy world they live in. But for Allison, she's losing her spot in the council. She's being attacked by the Smallfolk. Her and Helena are, barely getting out of it alive, having fish thrown at them. Talk to me about what happens to Allison in this episode compared to what happens to Rhaenyra.
I mean, what's funny is that throughout this entire season, really the entire series, like their experiences have been kind of parallel. Both of them honestly have lost power in some type of way. Rhaenyra is like bemoaning the fact that she isn't getting the full respect of her council because she's a woman, and they just kind of think lowly of just women in general, even women that they are serving. Whereas it's kind of realized more in Allison's face, like she's literally being thrown off of the small council. Her voice has gotten smaller every single time, essentially every meeting. First through Otto, through Aegon, and now through Aemon. She's lacking of purpose right now. Really tough episode for Allison, because we can kind of see it building throughout the episodes, but she's like feeling the guilt of like how her children turned out. And that's always been my, one of my biggest points of like empathy with Allison, like, is that she was thrown into a situation where it would take a lot for her to be like a great mother. She lost her mother young, so like not having that model of how to do it, and then having to have it, all these children with this old guy because he needs heirs, and being repressed in so many different ways. And like you could see it in season 1, through the younger version of Allison, like she just the experience broke her down in such a way, like it kind of put her into like this, castle prison. And she just always resented her children, with the exception being Darren. And, he's the only one that's not there. But like she's resented Aegon for just being a perv and just an overall shitty kid. I think she had a bond with Aemon until, he just kind of became consumed by like the indignities that he suffered as a kid, and he spent the rest of his life just trying to avenge those indignities. You know, Helena is just a head case. She like, I think she sympathizes with Helena, but she can't relate, and like she can't fully bond with Helena because she's just so aloof. And yeah, she's just kind of grappling with that. Like, man, was I a bad mother? You know, and I'm not a mother, but like, even despite the circumstances you're thrown into, like, I guess it's innate to feel like I should have done a better job. But I'm like, man, those kids just weren't going to be shit in different ways. Like, it was just kind of, it was destined. You know, so much of this story is like destiny just kind of playing out, whether you want to or not. But yeah, I feel for my girl, man. She's going through, like, she's watching her lover, you know, part-time lover roll out, you know, ride off to war again. We may not see him again. Who knows? Well, she may not see him again. Who knows? You know, just everything just kind of crumbling around her. Like, and really the only thing she can really truly depend on is her father. And like, he's also another source of contention with her. So like, man, my girl is going through it. Some of this is like of her own making. Like when you align yourself with patriarchy, even if like that's something you're taught to do and it's kind of drilled in your head, like ultimately you're going to be a victim of that as well. Like regardless how close you think you are to it, you know, she thought she was close to it with Viserys. Once he died, that was another layer of protection gone. She tried to like get a hold of Aegon early and kind of steer him, but like Aegon is Aegon. And then Aemon is Aemon. It's like she just really can't get a hold of like the power, even with good intentions. She can't get a hold of the right amount of power to like affect any type of change. And like she can see the wheels like going off, like this is going to crash and burn, but she can't really do shit about it. But it's, you know, try to invoke wisdom in small areas, and that's it.
Yeah, she's in a tough situation. But you know, good news, Frank. Aegon, he's getting better, right? Like he'll be back up and running in no time, right?
This guy said good news.
He's still alive. He survived Dragonfire.
Great.
The history of the legacy or the legend of this other Aegon. He'll have his own story to tell, right, Frank?
Yeah, something tells me Aegon does not want to be alive. Like especially how fucked up he is. Like he's fucked up, and that scene with him and Aemon, he was totally in fear when Aemon asked him, you know, what do you remember? He didn't hesitate to say, I don't remember anything, because like he remembers his brother trying to kill him, and like his brother is literally Prince Regent, and he's healthy, four-limbed, ready to go, and like he's at his brother's mercy, literally. And I think Aegon always knew his brother was a monster, but like him being firstborn, that's what protected him. But now that he's pretty much, you know, toiling at death's door, he knows that I gotta save face. I gotta play the village idiot and act like I don't know what just transpired regarding my life. That's a powerful scene, because the second sons in this world, especially highborns, they're treated differently. They're treated like second-class citizens in a way. They're not bestowed the honor and like the love that a first son gets. And with Aemon has been chasing his right eye since he was a kid. Like everything he's ever done has been trying to make up for what happened to him as a child. He overcompensates in so many different facets when it comes to you know, warfare and like people besting him. But I think the straw that broke the camel's back, I know we talked about it a few weeks ago, was him being embarrassed by Aegon in the whorehouse. I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I think from that point moving forward, Aemon, had he had the first chance he got was to eliminate his brother, especially in a way that it could be overlooked and not like traced back to him, he'll take it. And I think that shot, or that dragon melee with the three dragons, that was his perfect opportunity. But no, man, he's overcompensating from a second son eyeless childhood, and then that's what it is.
Yeah. And Brittany, for Aegon, it seems like he might have an ally in Laris Strong. You want to walk us through what the advice Laris gives him?
Man, Laris just took the opportunity to share his life story of how pretty much he's just been pitied his whole life. And that speaks volumes to Aegon because he does not want to be pitied at all, as Yesenia in the chat here said moments ago. And it really just crushes Aegon because remember earlier in the season, he talked about that he is someone to be feared. But he knows he really isn't, even though he claims he is. Just because he wears the crown doesn't mean that he's automatically feared or automatically is bestowed some kind of wisdom, as Allison had pointed out to him. You know, I think it's Aegon's worst fear coming true to be compared to that of the Clubfoot, right? That people would stare or you know, make comments, whether to your face or behind your back. That's something that Aegon doesn't want, especially as being king, right? So I literally don't care because I don't like the guy. But I do want to ask this question to y'all, as well as here in the chat. When Aemon went to go talk to his brother, and you could see the fear in Aegon's eyes when Aemon was there and being asked, what do you remember? And he goes to the automatic answer of, I remember nothing. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, right? I don't know if he actually does remember, or is he saying it to basically say to Aemon, I know nothing. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to freaking rat you out. Don't come at me. Because the fact that Aemon leaves the little ball, which I don't fully understand what these like balls that they use at the small council really what purpose they serve, but had Maester Oel not shown up, I want to ask y'all, what was Aemon going to do with that ball if the Maester had not shown up? Was he going to leave it for his brother, or was he going to use it on his brother? Discuss.
Tristan, go for it.
I think Aemon would have either finished the job himself or like provided some way for Aegon to finish it himself. Aemon has kind of secretly, not so secretly, wished that his brother was at the very least out of the way. He got his chance, you know, when Aegon foolishly challenged Meleys. And Aemon is spiraling, you know, like very clearly, like into madness, which again, Targaryens flip a coin, madness or wisdom. But yeah, Aemon, like if Aegon had shown any type of kind of defiance, if he had, you know, accused him of trying to kill him, I think Aemon would have finished that job somehow, some way.
Frank, what do you think? I think I know your answer, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think Aemon would have bashed his head in, and I think Aemon would have used his position and his faith that everybody in court is scared of him, and they probably would have said, "Oh, did Aegon fall out of the bed and bash his head 1,000 times on the ground? Oh, okay, well, you're king now, buddy." Like that's, I think it would have been another bad decision by Aemon. Like just use a pillow. Like there's no autopsies back in these days. Like it could have been way more subtle to bring a council marble ball to finish the job. Like that's wild. Like I get that you don't like your brother, but like you could be more subtle, bro, and send up your brother's death than like using a fucking marble ball to potentially bash his brains in. But nah, he was going off that white nigga, man. He was going off that nigga. He was like it was like he was just waiting for him to say anything outside of what Aegon said. So yeah.
I mean, Daenerys did it to Drogo when he wasn't going to get any better. She just suffocated him with a pillow. Why not, Amen? Why not? Justin, what are your thoughts?
I think he brought the council marble because, correct me if I'm wrong, but earlier in this season, wasn't Aegon kind of always like messing with that ball? They kind of always show him like he's spinning it or whatever. I think maybe that was kind of a nod, like, you never took this seriously. You were the firstborn. You got everything given to you. I lost an eye. I've had to, I became a warrior, whatever. I think that ball was symbolic of like, now I'm going to use this to kill you with it, or, potentially wound you even more. And you can tell the maester like, oh, turns out his injuries are worse than we thought. So he's in bad shape.
Yeah, no, I definitely think Aemon would have used that ball as kind of like that symbol of like power, as in moves has said here in the chat. But to leave it in his hands could also just be a way of saying like, all right, you're awake, you're still king, go king. You know what I'm saying? Like, just that's kind of how it was finally left for interpretation. But yeah, Aemon is the one to really be feared, right? Compared to Aegon. Aegon thinks he's, fearsome and what have you. You ain't shit, bro. Like you ain't shit. Even with your dragon, you weren't shit. So, yeah. R.I.P. to Sunfire too, by the way.
Yes. So, the thing about Aemon though is he's really focused on his uncle, Daemon. Let's talk about Daemon Targaryen. He is still stuck in his house of horrors that is Harrenhal. And Tristan, last couple episodes we've had the return of Millie Alcock as younger Rhaenyra. This episode we got the return of Paddy Constantine as King Viserys. What'd you think about the return of the king?
I mean, I thought we're just tapping into different parts of Daemon's like memories, his psyches, his regrets. Obviously we get young Rhaenyra, get his mother in a very interesting positions. And naturally we get, King Viserys, like that is a big spot for him because he loved Viserys.
Yeah.
But he also understood that he caused Viserys like a ton of strife that nobody benefited from. This is a big part of like Daemon's reckoning, I guess, which is something we're not like really privy to in the book. Like we get rumors and stuff, but like it is interesting seeing this play out. Excuse me, I had a cough. Yeah, he's like slowly losing his mind. One, and it's interesting that it's not like his triumphs that he's remembering. It's like all the things that all the bad things or some of the bad things that he's done. Like I wonder if his first wife would pop up in one of these dreams because are we just gonna continue forgetting she ever existed. But that also popped up in his nightmares, I suppose, or hallucinations. But King Viserys like orders him, like he did in season 1, go back to Runestone, like be with your lady wife, like that's a king's order, whatever. And it's just another shunning of Daemon, and that's like another big sore spot for him is like just being cast away. And Alice says that once he doesn't get what he wants, like he just completely disappears, but he can't disappear from his own thoughts. Like these are just things that are going to continue to haunt him until he has some type of reckoning, or until he meets his end, So I think I've seen online some people complain that, we've gotten to another episode of like Daemon, and you said his House of Horrors, but like this is I think a very important part of the characterization of Daemon, because like I said, I don't know if I said it last week or the week before, but like we spent so much time building up Daemon as like cool guy, right? The rebel, yep. Kind of marches at the beat of his own drum, the warrior guy. But like we also have to remember that this is a father of two girls that he just completely neglects because they don't really fit in with his timeline of what he wants. We also have to remember that he manipulated his niece. He, at every turn, rebelled against his brother, the king. Like there's as much bad as there is to like with the cool, the cool. And a lot of the cool is breaking down because he doesn't have the same privilege and layers of protection around him. So now all he has is to grapple with is himself. He has a wife that he refuses to obey, which he should. And like all these things are like causing more strife and more things that he's going to have to like reckon with at some point. So I think I like it as the characterization. Some of these hallucinations take a little bit too much time, but like I understand, I get it.
Frank, what'd you think about seeing seeing Patty Constantine again as Viserys and just Daemon overall in this episode?
I expected it. I think everybody that Daemon loves, or his version of love, on the flip of the coin, has guilt to it. And I think what I took out to add to it, I agree with everything Tristan said, by the way, but to add to that as well, I think the guilt of not knowing to today, watching the episode, what I got out of it was the guilt of like Viserys's son dying, and like you see the scene of him consoling him over the death of his son and death of his wife, his first wife. And Damon wasn't there. Damon was at a whorehouse kicking with the gold cloaks. Like he wasn't. I think Damon was so far removed from that. In season 1, you remember when he's called back to court and that line that I opened up with on the podcast, lick spittles and all that. Like I don't think Damon understood like the levity, the seriousness of what happened, because he wasn't around. He was so far removed from it. And then now with Harrenhal in that curse, and like seeing the pain, like actually living the pain with Viserys of like losing his heir and losing his wife, it broke him because he loves his brother, But I think oftentimes when it comes to selfishness and all of that, you tend to, as a selfish person, you tend to not think about what's going on while you're being selfish. But like when you see it from a different perspective, it adds light to it. And I think that scene of Daemon seeing his brother in pain really it broke him, because he wasn't around when it was happening live. I mean, when the son was stillborn, he was fighting Antonia against Kristen Cole. Like he just wasn't around for a lot of Viserys's sad downfall moments, and like he's getting all that in a fast forward version in Harrenhal. Also, that scene brought something to me in Game of Thrones. I think it was Storm of Swords. Like Daemon, Jaime went through the same shit. When Jaime and Bran get brought back to Harrenhal, Jaime is sleeping. He's sleeping on a weirwood stump, like Daemon, who's sleeping on the weirwood bed. A lot of the nightmares coming from the weirwood trees. Jaime goes through the same things, like losing his hand. He's having fever dreams, sleeping on this stump. He's having dreams of like nightmares of like the Kingsguard doing Ares reigns, calling him a traitor, calling him a Kingslayer. He's having dreams of feeling guilt of not being able to save Ilya Martell. And it's the first time reading that book or reading the series that you see Jaime's guilt, because Jaime is brought up as a cool guy, this asshole who don't give a fuck about shit. It's crazy how both those characters mirror each other in different worlds and in different parts of the timeline of this story. So that shit was powerful, man. I think Daemon, at least for the short term, will come out of this with a little bit more grace as far as like for the people that he loves. It's going to be interesting to see how he receives Rhaenyra when he goes back to Dragonstone. Now it's going to be, for me, it'll be a waste of a story of like, if he goes through all this shit of guilt and like atonement only to come back and treat Rhaenyra the same way. That'll be a waste. Like, why have all these fever dreams if he doesn't learn anything from it? So I would love to see how he handles it when he goes back to Dragonstone.
For the same reason they did Jaime Lannister wrong. He had the makings of a beautiful character arc. He could have had a wonderful life with Brienne of Tarth, and he's like, nope, need to go back to Cersei.
No, but the difference is he loved his sister, though. Jaime loved his sister. Daemon's not a family guy. We've established that he's not a family.
No, that much is true.
Yeah.
Jaime is Jaime. Here we go. Daemon is a narcissist. Yeah, right. Textbook. The fact that he has no choice but to fully confront his guilts and the terrible things that he's done in the past to the people that I guess you could say he has loved in some kind of fashion. one way or another. Definitely not the Lady of Runestone, because he's like, fuck her. I don't care. That's why we haven't seen her. We probably won't. With him seeing with us seeing Patty Constantine again, which was a joy. I figured that was going to happen at some point. I was more or less afraid that maybe Daemon was going to have his way with Viserys. I was like, oh Lord, like keeping it in the family would have meant something completely different at that point. But anyway, having to confront the fact that the things that he said, an heir for a day, he still has to face those repercussions for it, right? Like that wasn't something that you could say and you get away with, right? Even now, Viserys has been dead for how long? How long has that babe been dead, right? Like that still weighs heavy, obviously, in Daemon's heart and mind. So love that we got to see that scene. I agree with Tristan for sure. Some of these scenes are kind of carrying out a little too much, and it's important to see these scenes because you got to understand the events that are going to lead Daemon to do what Daemon does eventually. Alice Rivers also having conversations with Daemon and her orchestrating some things, because we eventually will also learn that Lord, is it Grover Tully? Grover? Glover? Grover. Grover. Okay, so Sesame Street. Grover Tully dies. And Lord Strong, if you will, addresses this to Daemon, who had previously been told by Alice, wait, don't do nothing now. In 3 days' time, the winds will shift. And pretty sure she's the cause for that shift. Lord Strong says that Alice was sent to go tend to the late Lord, but he was too far ill for anything to be done. So pretty sure she had a hand in Grover Tully's death.
I have a question, and maybe this is like, to me, like bothers me about Daemon. If you know about the lore of Harrenhal, or if you heard of the lore of Harrenhal, and let's say prior to going to Harrenhal, you didn't believe none of that shit, like about it being cursed, about Harren the Black, and all these different things, that hallucinations. You've not been there. Let's say 2 weeks he's been there. You've had nightmares every fucking day. You're waking up in the middle of the day in council meetings. You're not knowing where you're at. You don't think about going to different castles and getting a night's sleep somewhere else?
He claimed Harrenhal. Where else is he going to go?
He's going mad. Like, this,
as most Targaryens do. Hello, King Aerys.
Yeah, but this is expediting the madness of like all these. Like, it's known that in the Seven Kingdoms that nobody wants Harrenhal. No one wants to fuck with Harrenhal. Like, you can't go sleep with at the is the Brackens? Which side is I always get the Brackens and the Beewoods mixed up. But like there's other people, there's other castles and like liege lords that you can go hang out or go sleep outside next to your dragon. Like, you're having these hallucinations, and like it's getting worse by the day, by the night. You don't think of sleeping somewhere else outside of Harrenhal and to see that if it goes away for at least a night. Like, that's wild to me.
Rule number one of going mad is not to admit that you're going mad.
Bingo. Bingo.
Like that's the madness.
Weeks of it now. This is not
words out of my mouth. Exactly. When would Daemon ever own up to anything? Period. Like that would just make him look weak if he owned up to anything.
Daemon Targaryen accountability.
Thank you.
I just feel like the dreams. I feel like the dreams would serve a better purpose if he learned from them.
He could take his ass home. Go home.
Or that too. Like, I just feel like to serve the story, like if he does more of the same, I think leaves Harrenhal. I just don't know what the point of all these fever dreams. Because at least with Jaime, like for the short term, Jaime changed. Like when he went through all that shit, he kind of he had to come to Jesus moment. Like before season 7, but like
still didn't do him any good. Didn't do him.
I just see more of the same from Daemon, and it's kind of like I don't know. I just find it kind of wild.
You always got to have the one character that's going to relate to someone that we've known from Game of Thrones. Just like Mysaria is very much like Varys. Larys Strong is very much like Littlefinger. Aegon, people make parallels to that of Joffrey, which I don't necessarily agree with. But yeah, you gotta have someone relatable. Be like, oh yeah, that's who that reminds me of.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's a tough time for Damon. So tough that he's actually asking someone for help. He's talking to Alice Rivers, seeking counsel from her. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra is seeking counsel and much more from Mysaria.
Yeah.
Tristan or Brittany, I'll go to you. You want to talk about this? Obviously, Mysaria and Rhaenyra share a kiss or like a little mini makeout session. That honestly, I mean, 5 minutes before, I didn't predict that was going to happen. Once I start hugging, you're like, I know where this is going. Obviously, this is something that was a surprise to everyone because it was not in the books, correct?
No, I don't believe it was in the books or the book. It's not plural. It's one book. No, it was not in the story that I can recall. That was something for sure show written. I also am of the belief that because the fact that Rhaenyra has gone so long without having her lord husband and things like that, when you're longing, you're longing. Sometimes things happen. Mysaria shared something very personal to Rhaenyra, and to open up like that and also say to Rhaenyra, hey, you took me in and you kind of consider me like as your equal, even though our status is not the same. Like, you're a steadfast person. Like, you're someone who's like worthy of this world and that kind of thing. And that meant a lot to Mysaria. And I'm sure for Rhaenyra, for someone to be that vulnerable and share that kind of story to her, you kind of build that bond and then some, if you will. So yeah, that was the moment in the episode where I screamed because I heard rumors on social media, as Yesenia said here, Twitter spoiled it for her. This is why we don't jump on social media leading up to premiere episodes, because yeah, we don't want to be spoiled to it personally. Mel says here, I can see the Mysaria and Varys parallel. Okay, good to know. And yes, it moves her lord husband, uncle, cousin. Yeah, something along those lines. Keeping it all in the family. But yeah, that in that scene, because it takes place in Rhaenyra's bedchamber. It's not like it's in her office or it's in where the small council is usually held. It's in her bedchamber. And I'm just like, oh, something's gonna happen. Like, just long before the hug, I was like, something's gonna happen, because they wouldn't be in her bedchamber unless something was gonna happen. So yeah,
the timing was so weird, man. Like, I don't mind. Look, I am a believer, and I support women on women action. The timing was just so wild to me. I don't like. I got raped by my father, and I can't have babies. God damn, I need that pussy right now. That's what I heard. That's kind of what I saw. Like, I didn't understand that shit. Like that's what got you wet. Like, I don't understand. Like, that's what got the gears going. Like,
Franklin.
That's what happened.
That is exactly not what happened.
What did Mysaria said? Her father sexually assaulted her, right?
Yes.
Isn't that what she said?
Yep.
At least you're right.
That's what she said.
But it wasn't like Daemon going down on his mother. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, it was not the same.
I'm saying, like, that's what Rhaenyra got off on that. That's what she told her. She was telling her about her childhood and how rough it was and how violent it was. And then, like, before you know it, Rhaenyra gets horny. Like, I didn't understand, like, the timing of that. That was.
It looked like they both were into it at the same time. And then, yeah, like, both of them were being vulnerable. Like, Rhaenyra's expressing, like, the disappointment and, not having the full support and, like, feeling like, restrained. And Mysaria's telling her story. Like, both of them are being vulnerable with each other. And, like, yeah, naturally that would lead to, like, some type of intimacy. Like, showing somebody, like, vulnerability is a form of intimacy. How that plays out, whatever. But, like, it's not like Rhaenyra just kind of grabbed her by the throat and started kissing it. It was like,
I hear you. But the follow-up to the story that I was told was kind of wild. I'm just saying. That's just, I get intimacy. I get like they're opening up to each other. They're showing trust, but that's not gonna get me going if I heard a woman tell me that. that's wild.
This is a feudal society, man. Like I'm sorry, man. Like they could die at any moment. Like ain't got time for all this shit, man.
Like I said at the top of the show, when you're longing, you're longing. So,
Man,
but Brittany, do you think that are Masaria's intentions pure, or is she just playing the Game of Thrones? Because we know she's maneuvering her way through this world. Is she playing Rhaenyra because maybe she's still in love with Daemon?
No, I definitely don't think it's that way. It is interesting though when you consider it that both these women have been with Daemon intimately, and I don't think it really has anything to do with Daemon at all, because that was not the true point of the story. Like Mysaria being that vulnerable, that's when Rhaenyra approached her, right? It had nothing to do with talking about Daemon. Even though Rhaenyra did say like we're two halves of a whole, right? But I think it's just kind of like you're in the heat of the moment kind of situation. Whether or not this will play out into something more remains to be seen, because now that Rhaenyra is aware that there is a dragon rider for Sea Smoke, that is very important because she needs dragons. She needs to build up her army, what have you. But we'll continue to see Mysaria counsel Rhaenyra. We just don't know if that's going to be while they're standing or while they're laying down. I don't know. I mean, just like I genuinely don't know, but I don't believe it has anything to do with Daemon.
I'm gonna tell a girl that my dog died when I was 6 and hope I get some pussy out of that. So that's gonna be my goal. That's what I got from that scene. Like, it's totally awesome and random as shit.
I hate you. And Move says all of Rhaenyra's men disappear. It's got to go to someone.
It's a good point.
It's a great point.
As we kind of wrap up this episode, let's talk about some dragons. As you said, we see that, Sea Smoke has chosen Adam of Hall. And Tristan, I want to get your thoughts on this, because the episode ends on kind of a cliffhanger, because Rhaenyra flies off to find this dragon rider that's been claimed by the dragon. But we as the audience, we know who's been claimed. So do you think this was an effective use of a cliffhanger, or like, couldn't they have just like ended it with her meeting him or something? To me, it just kind of falls flat, because then on the trailer for next week, the first thing they show is her confronting the person that we saw get the dragon.
Yeah, I mean, it fell so flat that I have to believe that they didn't really truly mean it as a cliffhanger, because it was foreshadowed. Like, it's been foreshadowed for a few episodes now. In the case of like Corlys and his lineage, and yeah, no, I didn't think of it as a cliffhanger. I just kind of look at it as like a transition, essentially, to episode 7. Yeah, I didn't really take it. Like, yeah, it was pretty easy to see. Like, once that dragon did not burn Adam of Hole alive, that that was a claimed dragon.
Yeah,
a claimed rider, at least.
It's probably more just like a cool shot to end on, to see her fly away. Yeah, so it's more that.
Well, she's been itching. She's been itching to like take part in this whole war actively, right? More than just being spoken to. And I love that she slapped the shit out of one of her council members, which was funny, because she's tired of being talked around, right? Like, she's their queen, and she's not allowed to take any part of it. I understand, but at the same time, she's got to act. She's got to do something, and that's her opportunity to go and do something and find out for herself. Are you for the Greens? Or are you for us, the Targaryens?
So continue with some dragon talk. Frank, got a question for you. So we see Rhaena, and she's in the Vale, and she's got some kids with her. She's got some little dragons, but then we find out there's a wild dragon that is burning things in the Vale. Do we know, or am I supposed to know who this dragon is? I mean, I'm sure y'all know, but do we know this dragon?
I mean, unless they're going a little bit different from the books, there was a woman that Damon was very familiar with, and Rhaenyra didn't like it, and she fled Dragonstone, never be seen again. I don't know if that's that dragon that's the dragon that's terrorizing the Vale. That's my only guess. That character has not shown up. I don't think that character is going to be in the show. But I have no idea what dragon is that far north. That's a yeah. I'm confused by that as well.
Tristan, any thoughts on this wild dragon?
Yeah, that was same thought as Frank. So much stuff in the book is kind of being like merged into the show. Some stuff being left out. Like I'm sure they're leaving out the scores of potential dragon riders, or maybe we see that in season 3. But yeah, it's wild dragon. They're just kind of going around. There's different accountings of seeing a dragon fly here, fly there, eat this goat, eat whatever. But that's really my best guess. Again, it's all centered around Team Black and their need for like more dragons, more dragon riders, and it's just like all these mysterious sightings of dragons, small dragons, large dragons. And yeah, it was one like huge dragon that other dragons would like kind of cur away from, like if they kind of smelt the dragon nearby. So maybe that's that dragon. We'll see.
We will see. Brittany, talking about so by my math, Team Black still has 2 dragon riders. They're still looking for 2 dragon riders, correct? I mean, potentially 3, but they know they've got 1 because the dragon claimed that person. There's still 2 dragons for them to find riders, correct?
Yeah, so I think the dragons that are still on Dragonstone, if I'm not mistaken. So Sea Smoke was one, which was Rhaenyra's former dragon, who's now been claimed by Adam of Hall. There's also Vermithor, who was King Jaehaerys's dragon, who has yet to be claimed by anyone. And then I'm trying to remember if it was Sheep Stealer, Gregos, Cannibal. There's a lot. There's a lot of other dragons that we have yet to meet. But Jace did name them off, the 2 that were underneath the.
Okay.
Unless it was Sea Smoke, but yeah, there are more dragons on Dragonstone that we have yet to be introduced to. I do have an idea who the dragon in the Vale may be. And I've actually just said the name of it already. But yeah, that remains to be seen as of yet. Frank, I know who you're talking about that Damon is familiar with. I doubt they'll incorporate that person. They'll just probably kind of like write her off and just just say, oh, there's like a dragon in the Vale, kind of situation. They gotta cut corners. They already cut corners with not having Maegor, the third child to Aegon and Helena. So I think wherever they can cut corners and whatnot, they will do. But we need that money for the dragons. We need to see all the dragons.
Yeah, if it's not who I think it could be from the books, it's probably Sheep Stealer. I mean, in the books, he was known for like eating cattle and sheep and just running wild. So, yep.
I agree. I totally agree, because I mean, obviously the dragons got to eat, and they will find whatever they can and eat it. And this dragon, it was particularly known for stealing sheep, thus given the name Sheep Stealer.
So the final thing I have is a couple scenes in this episode. We see Adam talking with Alan, and they are brothers, correct? So
Yep.
Obviously Adam gets claimed by a dragon. Tristan, do you think Alan, his brother, is going to be, is he being recruited by a dragon also, or vice versa?
That one will leave up, to the to the Alan. He has a large part to play. Let's just say that
Okay.
a very large part to play in this wars to come. Whether he mounts a dragon, we'll see. We'll leave that one up and leave that up for discussion for the next 2 weeks.
I guess my question is too, do we, because I can't remember in the books, does Corlys recognize Adam and Alan as his sons at all?
It's different in the books. I keep saying books, it's book. It's different in the book. The show has made it where Corlys is the father to these bastard sons, but in the book, it's rumored that Corlys is the father, but Rhaenyra is actually the father of both Adam and Alan, I believe.
Okay.
So they're changing some things, but nonetheless, Velaryon, period. Like whether it's sired by Rhaenyra or Corlys, they're Velaryon for sure.
And Alan and Adam are like much younger in the book.
Extremely
young. Like they
extremely.
Alan looks like a 45-year-old man. Like they're much younger in the book.
Are they like around the same age as like Jace, and like somewhere between Jace and like
older?
Older?
Yeah.
They're not older. Teenagers, but they're also not like they look 35 and
especially Alan. Alan just looks like he's about the same age as Corlys. Like, good God. Him trying yeah, that's true. Him trying to hide his silver hair, by keeping his head shaved, but Adam does not possess the traditional Velaryon silver hair, which is interesting. I like that, because what I didn't particularly care for with the show making the decision that the Velaryons, or not the Velaryons, Princess Rhaenys, who is half Baratheon, she actually has dark hair in the book, but they gave her silver hair in the show. And this also is important for the children of Rhaenyra, because them all being dark haired, it was like, well, they inherited the gene from their grandmother, who is half Baratheon. And that's why this whole, because Rhaenyra had a relationship with Harwin Strong, that's where they decided to go with that, blah, blah, blah. So it's interesting that we see these bastard brothers who one has the silver hair and the other one doesn't.
We were talking about a little bit earlier about Game of Thrones comparisons for characters. And to me, Alan kind of gives me like Jon Snow vibes. He doesn't seem to want, doesn't have the ambition, certainly that Adam does. And since y'all are telling me he plays a big part in the story, I wonder if that's kind of not necessarily a one-to-one, but maybe along the same lines.
Yeah, Jon Snow would have done anything to be a Stark.
Well, right, but like the fact that
that's
he didn't
true.
want to be, he didn't want to be the king, and he did, it's like, didn't want the responsibility of that, or got it. Any final thoughts? Anything we didn't talk about that y'all want to touch on from the episode?
For me, the growing kind of mini conflict between Rhaenyra and her son and Jace.
Yeah.
Just more of the questioning decisions. Those two aren't fully on alignment. They're not fully aligned on strategy. Like, she's not fully telling him everything as far as her plans. And he, doesn't really fully trust her to be able to lead yet. Like, he's kind of pacifying her in a lot of ways. Like, hey, you're my mother and I'm always going to obey you and all that other stuff. But when it comes to these big decisions, he's really quick to question. So seeing, not just in these last two episodes, but as we move to the next season, seeing Rhaenyra struggle with not really having the true support of the people around her, and the decisions she makes as a result of that is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, it's something we definitely need to keep an eye on, because you're right. That is, it's kind of like an, low key it's happening. And, we're kind of seeing stuff happen between Jace and Rhaenyra. Frank, any final thoughts or anything you want to mention that we didn't touch on?
Trying to think. So I was driving. I wasn't actually watching the show. I was just hearing I was hearing like it was an audio book. So I don't recall a lot of the visual scenes. I mean, more so of Aemond and Alicent's relationship as well. How Aemond Aemond has an axe to ground with his mother. Like it's never ending. And I think, and I know Tristan spoke about this earlier too. Just I mean, I think Alicent was fucked from jump of like not having the tools to be an aspiring good mother. But it's interesting to me how Aemond is holding that against her as if she had a choice in the matter. I'm really curious to see how far he takes it. I know he kicked her out of the council. It would show me if he kicks her while she's down even more, if more belittling happens with her, even though now that she's out with the council, that would tell me how much he hates his mother. I know he doesn't really fuck with his mom, but if it's more chastising and like belittling after that, like with her being out of the council, that's gonna tell me a lot more about Aemond and who he is. As I mean, we know he's a monster, but damn, I mean, like to keep kicking your mother down, that's gonna be something. That's gonna be some uncomfortable scenes to watch if that does take place.
Mm-hmm. Brittany, final thoughts or something you want to talk about we didn't mention?
So I know in one of the earlier episodes, I think it was the Burning Mill, when we saw the Brackens and the Blackwoods, right? The tension that's been feuding for centuries, right? And I know we talked about that, how we needed to see how this war was going to impact, like, other families and just like this and that, what have you. But I like the idea that they decided to focus more on the Smallfolk, because for this whole season, we've been getting little bits here and there about how the Smallfolk could be impacted by the struggle that is between Team Green and Team Black. And getting that to come into full force with just the struggle, like Yesenia in the chat says, the mob was scary, hunger is real, and that's talking about when Alicent and Helena go to the sept to light a candle, pray, what have you, and they're met by an angry mob who had just received their food from Rhaenyra, and then proceeded to throw said food at them, which I was like, okay, you guys have been starving, like don't waste your food. Like, and the seed has been planted, right? And we know you're angry and you're wanting to, hate on the royals and what have you. Good for you. But like, don't waste your food. Don't waste your food. Put it to better use. Put it in your bellies, So that kind of like that kind of stumped me, like why they would do that. But out of sheer desperation and just sheer anger, I thought that was a really powerful scene, especially when the one King's Landing Smallfolk goes and puts his hands on Alicent, and the guard reacts, cuts off his arm, and then the mob just pounces, right? It was crazy. So I'm like, oh, are we gonna resort to cannibalism at this point? Like, yikes, this is not gonna end well for probably a lot of the Knights Guard. Just kidding, the King's Guard. But poor Helena having to go through this crowd again, and that anxiety was real. Like I felt it. I felt it in my soul. I felt for her. She's probably the only Team Green member that I actually feel for, because she's got nothing to do with any of this. Like poor child, poor sweet summer child.
I need Alicent to think, like, the city's starving. Pray in your fucking room. Don't leave the Red Keep to go outside to go pray. Like, stay in the fucking room and pray in the
build a sept in the Red Keep.
Bruh, please stop torturing your daughter indirectly this way. And again, I think another thing outside of them being hungry, Aegon killed 99 men. So imagine how many fathers were killed, the rat catchers, how many fathers were murdered, how many sons were murdered in that fast. The cousins, like, they murdered a lot of people, and the bodies were just hanging for weeks. So I'm sure, like, outside being hungry, which the larger part is being hungry, but like the violence of like seeing those bodies just hanging around, those people's families, man. Like it's just a constant reminder of how like this administration does not fuck with the small folk, and this is what it is. Like, it's no different in how we marry Game of Thrones. It's no different than what Cersei did to the small folk and Joffrey did to the small folk. Like, by their atonement, the small folk hated Cersei. They hated the administration at that point because of how they were treated. It's just a mirror image of how you treat the small folk. They're gonna return that tenfold.
Yeah, no, great point. Good point to end it on also, because the title of the episode is Small Folk, and Frankie wrapped it up nicely with some small folk talk. So now you know what we think about this episode. We want to know what you think about it. And Brittany, how can people tell us what they think about season 2, episode 6 of House of the Dragon? You're on mute. You're muted. Yep.
Damn it. One day I'm going to get this right. Shit.
Okay.
God. Yeah. As I was saying, subscribe to our channel. We notice about 80% of our viewers are not subscribed to us. So just go ahead and click that little button that says subscribe. Also, move over to the right, hit the like button, and then move over to the right one more time and hit the notification bell. That way you know the next time we go live, which will be tomorrow, as we discuss the season 4 finale of The Boys. And y'all don't want to miss that one because we've got a lot of thoughts, got a lot of feelings, lots of thoughts. Damn. But we want to give a big shout out to those who joined us in today's live chat. M Moves, Mel of Geeking Out with Melly Mel, Yesenia. I think we saw King B Johnson here earlier as well. And one last shout out to Christian of McDorks, who said hi and bye. But yeah, we appreciate the engagement. We really enjoy getting a chance to hear y'all's thoughts, answer your questions, and what have you. If you haven't done so already, go follow us on social media. All those links are in our about section of YouTube. And also don't forget that we have audio podcasts available to you on Apple and Spotify. Be sure to give us a follow and give us a 5-star rating.
Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate it. So for Brittany, for Tristan, and for Frank, I'm Justin saying thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Lick spittles.